Okay, so before I talk about the details in this episode, let's talk about the opening song of the new Shingeki no Bahamut episode. Many have been sending me messages all day saying, Chibi, have you heard that song? Like, what's your thoughts on it? And many have told me, like, Chibi, I don't really like that opening song. It just doesn't fit Shingeki no Bahamut, because all the other opening songs we've gotten of Shingeki has been more of the metal side, heavy metal side. So I can understand why many would be kind of upset with the newest opening, because it's very, very different from everything else that this series has given us thus far. So I could see why many would be like, what the fuck? Like, the way the opening song is, it's definitely different. Visually, I feel like it's lacking. I want to be honest here. Visually, I feel like the opening song isn't as good as the previous openings. Because if there was one thing that Shingeki no Bahamut always had going for it, it would be the openings. The opening visuals. The opening visuals always looked insane. Just the way Studio Mappa went that extra mile to put some crazy stuff that you normally don't see in an opening, it made it very impressive. And so that was what many of us have come to expect from, you know, Shingeki no Bahamut's opening songs. Well, this new opening song, it's not just that the music was a radical change, it was the fact that the visuals within it were not as pizzazzy as the other openings of the series, which, that is my biggest complaint. However, when it comes to the overall music, like, you know, hearing it and all that, personally, I like the song. I like the song, I like that type of Japanese music. That's just my type of thing. However, I do have to admit, it's very weird after hearing heavy metal songs for the previous openings of the series. But when it comes to the music, I have no problem with it. I think it's fine. I like the music, actually. But the visuals are probably the biggest fault with the opening. So that's my 2 cents there. So with that being said, let us talk about the latest episode of Shingeki no Bahamut. So to get it out of the way, Favreau and Rita are not in this episode. So we don't get an update status on those two characters. We don't see what Rita's doing. We don't see what Favreau's doing. They're not even in this episode, which is kind of sad, because I wanted to see what was going on with Favreau and Rita as well, but that did not happen, because obviously, though, if Rita was in this episode, she would have won the episode just for one scene. So I could see why Studio Mappa didn't have her this week in the episode, because she's just that good of a character. Regardless, though, without those two characters being there, mainly this episode was a Nina and Janae focused episode. It was focused on these two characters and what they're doing, what they're trying to accomplish right now in the story, but also having some characterization taking place for Nina. She has an extreme case of PTSD. Because of what happened to her father, how her father died, blew up thanks to a fireball from Bahamut at the end of, you know, Season 1, well, she has PTSD because of that. And the main reason why she's like this is actually thanks to Janae. What Janae did at the end of Season 1, she's like, holy shit, it's kind of like my fault. And so she feels guilty about it, and she realizes why so many of these children in this village are orphans is probably because of her and everybody else that, you know, participated. So she's like, fuck, that's kind of fucked up. So I kind of feel bad for her, but it lets us know why Nina has been like she is. And one of the big things about this, though, that was really surprising was apparently she only gets thirsty for people or transforms into a dragon if they remind her of her father. What? 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 So, she, So, she gets thirsty because they remind her of her father. Well, what the, what? What? You know what? Fuck it. I'm not talking about that. Fuck. I'm gonna move on. Okay. I'm moving on. Okay. I'm not talking about that. Fuck it. I'm talking about the other details. Okay. So basically, we have another character that pops up in this episode, the granny. The grandma of this episode felt very real in a way, because the way she was just sitting there acting all old and all that, and then Nina walked over to her trying to get information, the way she just talked or reacted was very slow. But then when she had a cup of tea and she's like just sitting there blowing on the tea, she's blowing on it for a good long while, and then all of a sudden when she's done blowing, she's like, you want some? You want a sip? I'm like, yeah, it's so cute. Like, okay, the grandma reminded me of a typical Grandma, and I felt like Studio Mappa did a good job with that. When it came to this character in this story, that was a good way to bring this character in. Just a really lively character. Grandma's pretty badass as well, because the dragon form, holy shit, the dragon form, like, bruh, that dragon form looks fucking crazy. But besides that, though, Grandma was very typical like a granny, and I just really enjoyed her character in this episode. So yeah, when it comes to that, I enjoyed, you know, how she's going to be probably a big, important character in these upcoming episodes. How she's going to be transporting Nina and Jane around to where the land of the gods are, for instance, where they can find Muguro. So that's their destination, that is the objective right now. Now, besides all of these things, we also have some fan service in this episode, which you know how I feel about fan service. I'm fine with fan service if it doesn't take away from what's important. That's my true viewpoint on this topic, and I will remain serious and true to that. I'll just be honest. There was fan service in this episode, and some of the fan service, some of it might have been pointless, but when it came to the overall hot spring part, usually I hate those scenes the most when it comes to fan service. The hot spring part of the episode was very important, actually, because it kind of dived into the relationship with Nina and the king, and how she feels about the king, and it lets us know that Nina, she has very complicated emotions. Like, she doesn't really know what to feel. She's still on the fence about the king. She doesn't 100% hate him, but she doesn't 100% like him either. But she kind of still has feelings for him because he was her first love. So, that entire spa scene, or hot spring scene, that was important, but there was a lot of fan service in that scene. I think that was really what the main point of that scene was, honestly, besides just the confirmation on the king's relationship, or Nina's, you know, overall thoughts on the king. Now, Cerberus was in this episode once again, which, like, damn. Cerberus was very cute. I've always thought she was a very cute character in this series, and seeing her back again, I was like, I'm glad. I'm glad she's popping up. Hopefully she has a bigger role in the second half of Shingeki no Bahamut, because, I mean, I would like to see that. I mean, she was always an awesome character, it's just she never got dived into much. So hopefully Studio Mappa uses her a little bit more in the second half. Now, also in the opening song, which I should have talked about earlier, there was a character that was shown, which many might mistaken for Azazel, but actually it was Lucifer. So Lucifer was in the opening song, right next to Azazel. And what I'm assuming here, when I'm thinking that Lucifer is the one that's probably helping out the king. Remember what was stated in the last episode, that someone clearly had to be helping out the king because there's just no way he could have done all these things without the help of someone? Well, most likely it might be Lucifer. That's what I'm thinking because of his introduction into the opening song. That's just my 2 cents there. So, yeah, overall episode of Shingeki no Bahamut, it was a good episode. I thought it was enjoyable, but yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. How do you feel about the latest episode? I love you all so much. Please be safe. Chibi out.